They thought we wouldn't notice, but in the fine print of NASCAR's latest technical bulletin, there's a smoking gun aimed directly at Shane van Gisbergen. November 14th, 2025, while every Yank journo was busy yapping about playoff formats and the return of the chase, NASCAR quietly dropped a technical update for the 2026 rulebook. 5 tracks shifted, horsepower bumped to 750, A-post flaps mandated at every single circuit, and buried in that lot, a package change that just so happens to neutralize the exact thing that makes our Kiwi a god behind the wheel. Let's be real, since SVG rocked up from supercars and won Chicago on debut, mate, his first ever Cup start, the American establishment has been sweating bullets. 5 wins in 2025. Sunoco Rookie of the Year tied with Kyle Busch and Jeff Gordon for 9 road course wins across the National Series. Justin Marks called him a cheat code. The best stock car road course racer he's ever seen. Historic, his words. And now the rule book is evolving. Funny that. So the question I want you locked in for is this just NASCAR tinkering? Or is this a calculated stitch-up to clip the wings of the bloke who's made their American heroes look like learner drivers every time the track turns right? Stick with me, because what I found in Act 2 is going to make your blood boil. Here's what NASCAR actually announced. Fair dinkum, straight from their own press release. 5 tracks, Bristol, Darlington, Dover, Nashville, and Gateway, are being shifted from the intermediate package to the short track and road course package. 3-inch rear spoiler, fewer diffuser strakes, same configuration SVG's been carving up the field with on the twisty bits. Sounds good for him, yeah? More tracks running his package? That's what they want you to think. But here's the kicker. When you dilute a specialist package across a dozen ovals where SVG is still learning the dark art of pack racing, you hand every American journeyman a head start. They get more reps in that aero config on tracks they already know. SVG, he's still figuring out the cadence of a Dover concrete jungle, while Larson, Byron, and Bell have 10 years of muscle memory there. It's not banning him, it's drowning him. And the A-post flap mandate, mate, on paper, it's a safety thing, stops the car lifting off in a spin. Brilliant! Nobody wants drivers going airborne, but here's where it gets sus. SVG's aggressive sideways style, the slip angle wizardry he brought from supercars, generates more yaw than any oval bloke on the grid. More yaw means more flap deployments. More flap deployments mean more aero disruption in his own car mid-corner. I've been digging through the telemetry chat on the forums, and the engineers reckon a triggered A-post flap can cost half a second a lap on a road course until the car settles. Half a second. Over 90 laps at Watkins Glen, that's 45 seconds gone. And remember, he won the Glen by clawing back 29 seconds in 17 laps. They've just handed his rivals a buffer he physically can't overcome. Coincidence or coordinated? Hang on, because the next bit is where it gets properly dirty. Here's the question nobody in the American press is brave enough to ask. If SVG loses half a second a lap on the road courses, who exactly picks up the check? This is where I went down the rabbit hole, and what I found, mate, will absolutely do your head in. Connor Zilisch, 20 years old, American golden boy, Trackhouse Racing's own, SVG's own teammate, and by every American media outlet's own admission, the bloke being groomed as the next road course king. They're already running Zilisch and SVG head-to-head at Watkins Glen. They're already saying Zilisch is the biggest threat to SVG's road course empire. Now think about this. If a rule change quietly nerfs the Kiwi's edge and the American kid in the identical equipment suddenly closes the gap, guess who looks like a star? Guess who gets the Cup Series marketing push? Guess whose face ends up on every Bank of America billboard from Charlotte to Daytona? This isn't paranoia. This is how every sanctioning body in the world has operated since the dawn of motorsport. They protect the marketable national hero. They always have. Ask Ayrton Senna about Balestri. Ask Mark Webber about every Red Bull strategy call from 2010 to 2013. Ask any Aussie who watched Marcos Ambrose get the rough end of the pineapple in his Cup days. But here's the absolute belter of a twist. Justin Marks, SVG's own team owner, has gone radio silent on the rule changes. Not a single public statement pushing back on the technical bulletin, not a peep on SiriusXM, nothing on his usually active socials. The bloke who called SVG a historic thing suddenly can't find his Twitter password. Either he's been told to shut it by NASCAR brass, or, and this is the spicy take, he's already pivoting the team's marketing budget towards Zilisch. Because at the end of the day, Marks runs a business, and an American champion sells more hats in Tennessee than a Kiwi from Auckland. I'm not saying Marks is in on it. I'm saying the silence is deafening, and in this sport, silence is consent. So what does SVG himself reckon? Has he copped this on the chin, or is he firing back? Stay locked in, because his quiet protest is the loudest thing in the garage right now. May 2026, Watkins Glen, first road course test of the new rule book. What did SVG do? He went out and stuck it on pole. Won stage 2, gave the entire American field an absolute toweling, and reminded NASCAR that you can change the bolts, you can change the strakes, you can change the bloody flaps, but you cannot legislate against talent. But here's what the highlight reel won't show you. SVG had already raised the alarm before the weekend, publicly flagging concerns about the new Watkins Glen barrier placement, calling it a worry. Was NASCAR listening? Of course they weren't. They dismissed his restart concerns earlier in the season too, when a Joe Gibbs driver dodged a late race penalty that should have been textbook. SVG copped it on the chin. The American got off scot-free. You see the pattern yet? It's not one rule. It's not one penalty. It's a death by 1,000 cuts. The brake duct talk. The shark fin mandate at Daytona. The barrier shifts, the A-post flaps, the package shuffling. Every single tweak, every single one chips away at the exact margins our boy uses to win. And here's the bit that should make every Aussie and Kiwi watching this absolutely filthy. SVG isn't whinging. He's not running to the media. He's not throwing tantrums on the radio. He just keeps fronting up, giving it the beans, and beating them on the track anyway. That's the Anzac way. You don't cry about the umpire. You belt the ball harder, but made it. At some point, fair go has to mean fair go. At some point, NASCAR has to stop taking the mickey and admit they've got a generational talent on their hands, and the answer isn't to slow him down. The answer is to let him race and let the Americans figure out how to keep up. Because if they keep this up, if they keep tweaking the rule book every time the Kiwi wins, they're not protecting their sport. They're admitting their boys can't cut it, right? Here's where you come in. I want a war in the comments section. 2 camps, pick a side. Camp 1, national pride. And you reckon NASCAR is deliberately rigging the rule book to protect their American golden boys from a Kiwi who's making the whole grid look ordinary. Your hashtag Team SVG, and you want the playing field actually level, not level in the corporate sense. Camp 2, you reckon I've gone full conspiracy. You think NASCAR is just being NASCAR, the rules apply to everyone, and SVG will keep winning regardless because the bloke is a freak? Drop your verdict below, hashtag AnzacUprising, or hashtag Yankee Bias, make it loud, make it spicy, and tag a mate who still reckons NASCAR is a fair go. Because if we don't hold them to account, who will?